Hello everyone. Today's story is about a woman who drove 10 hours with her kids, only to be told she wasn't family the moment she arrived. What followed wasn't just humiliation, it was the uncovering of a truth her entire family had hidden for years. Stay with me because this story doesn't end at the wedding, it begins there. You're not supposed to be here. The words didn't land loudly. They slid across the air like something rehearsed, quiet, sharp, deliberate. I was still holding my youngest on my hip when my uncle said it, his eyes barely meeting mine. Behind him, soft music drifted out of the venue, warm lights glowing against polished glass doors. Inside, laughter. Clinking glasses. Family. Outside, just me. My name is Danielle Carter. I'm 34. Have you ever stood right in front of your own family and realized you were never really part of it? My 3 kids shifted beside me, tired from the 10-hour drive. My daughter's hand was still wrapped in mine, sticky from the candy she'd saved for this moment. She looked up at me confused. Mom, aren't we late? I didn't answer. I looked past my uncle, straight at my father. He stood there, stiff, hands in his pockets. Not angry. Not surprised. Just still. Like a photograph someone forgot to take down. No one moved to hug me. No one smiled. No one said my name. The glass doors reflected us back. Me and my children, like strangers who had wandered into the wrong life. And for a second, I wondered if we had. I paused, took a slow breath and reached for my phone. As if I wasn't family. Then someone had been lying for a very long time. My thumb hovered over my grandmother's name for a second longer than it should have. Behind me, one of my sons dragged his suitcase across the pavement, the wheels rattling like they were protesting too. The sound echoed in the silence my family had created. I pressed call. It rang once. Twice. Then her voice came through, soft, steady, familiar. Danny. I swallowed. No one had called me that in years. I'm outside the wedding, I said quietly. Uncle Mark says I'm not supposed to be here. There was a pause. Not confusion. Not surprise. A pause that felt heavy. Stay there, she said. The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly. My uncle let out a small, irritated breath, like I had just complicated something simple. You didn't have to do that, he muttered. I didn't respond. Instead, I watched my father. He shifted his weight slightly, eyes flicking toward the door, then back to the ground. Still silent. Still choosing nothing. That silence, it wasn't new. It was the same silence from birthdays he missed, from calls he didn't return, from every moment I needed him to just say, "She's my daughter." Inside, the music swelled louder for a second as the doors opened. Someone laughing, a burst of light spilling out. Then the doors shut again. And just like that, we were back outside. Waiting. Not for permission. For truth. Because something about my grandmother's voice told me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was something they had all agreed on. The wind picked up slightly, brushing against my arms like it was trying to move me. Or warn me. Then I heard it. A car door closing. Not rushed. Not loud. Just final. I turned. My grandmother was walking toward us, her steps slow but certain, like she already knew exactly where this moment would land. She wasn't dressed for the wedding. No bright colors, no jewelry. Just her usual soft gray coat. But everyone noticed. My uncle straightened immediately. My father finally looked up. And for the first time since I arrived, someone looked uncomfortable. Mom, you didn't have to come out here, my uncle said quickly, forcing a smile. She didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on me. And then on my children. Something in her face shifted. Not surprise. Not confusion. Recognition. You brought them, she said quietly. I nodded, unsure what that meant. She stepped closer, her hand brushing mine for a second, cold but grounding. They didn't tell you, she murmured. It wasn't a question. Behind her, I felt the tension snap tight. Mom, my father finally spoke, his voice low, warning. This isn't the place. She turned her head slowly toward him. No, she said, calm but sharp. This is exactly the place. The air went still. Even the distant music felt quieter somehow. I looked between them, my chest tightening. Tell me what? I asked. No one answered. But my grandmother's grip on my hand tightened just enough to say what her words didn't. This ends tonight. And for the first time, I realized the wedding wasn't the main event. It was just the stage. "This is not the place," my father repeated louder this time. But his voice didn't carry authority. Cracked. My grandmother let go of my hand slowly, like she was preparing to carry something heavier. "No," she said again. "It should have been said years ago." A glass shattered faintly inside the hole. Laughter followed, careless, unaware. Out here everything felt suspended. I looked at my father. Really looked at him. "Say it," I said quietly. He didn't. Of course he didn't. He stared past me like he always did when things got real, like I was something easier to ignore than explain. My uncle stepped forward, forcing a tight smile. "Danielle, this isn't what you think. It's just, this event is limited. Immediate family only." The words hung there. Immediate family. My daughter squeezed my hand tighter. And that's when I noticed it, the reflection in the glass doors again. Not us this time. A framed photo inside just near the entrance. The bride. My cousin. And beside her, a family portrait. My father. My uncle. My grandmother. Everyone. Except me. Except my children. Like we had been edited out. "They removed you," my grandmother said softly, following my gaze. Something inside my chest went cold. "Removed me from what?" I asked. Her eyes met mine, steady, unflinching. "From the truth." Behind us, the wind stilled completely. My father took a step forward, panic flashing across his face now. "Mom, don't." But she already had. "You were never supposed to find out this way," she said gently. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. "Find out what?" She exhaled slowly, then said the one thing that made everything around me shift. "The man standing in front of you," she paused, "is not your father." Silence didn't follow. It collapsed. The words didn't hit all at once. They unfolded, slowly, like something my mind had been protecting me from for years. "Not your father." I looked at him, at the man who had stood in every doorway of my childhood, always distant, always just out of reach. And suddenly, it made sense. The missed birthdays. The cold handshakes instead of hugs. The way he introduced me as Danielle instead of my daughter. Not absence. Distance. Intentional distance. "You're lying," I said, but my voice didn't carry anger. Just exhaustion. My grandmother shook her head gently. "No, baby." I stayed quiet too long. My uncle stepped in sharper now. "This doesn't change anything. The past is the past. You showing up here." "No," I cut in, my voice steady for the first time. "You made it present the second you told me I wasn't family." That landed hard. My kids stood behind me, silent, watching everything. My oldest had that same look I used to have, trying to understand adults who refused to explain anything. I wouldn't do that to them. I reached into my bag slowly and pulled out the envelope I had almost left in the car. It felt heavier now. "I didn't come here just for a wedding," I said. My father, no, the man standing there, finally looked directly at me. "Then why are you here?" he asked. I met his eyes. "Because someone sent me this," I said, holding up the envelope. "And I think all of you already know what's inside." No one spoke. But their faces did. Fear doesn't shout. It freezes. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't the one standing outside anymore. They were. The wind shifted again, colder this time, like it had been waiting for this moment too. I slid my finger under the seal. No one tried to stop me. That's how I knew. They already understood what this was. Paper brushed against paper as I pulled out a single folded document. The sound felt louder than the music behind those glass doors. Louder than the silence standing in front of me. My youngest tugged lightly at my coat. "Mom, what is it?" I didn't answer. I unfolded it slowly. And there was a birth certificate. But not the one I grew up with. This one had a different name. Not his. Not the man standing in front of me, suddenly pale, suddenly smaller. A stranger. Or maybe not a stranger at all. My eyes moved down the page, tracing every letter like they might rearrange themselves if I stared long enough. They didn't. "They told me it was lost," my grandmother said quietly behind me. "Years ago. But some truths don't stay buried." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Then I looked up. Directly at him. "Did you know?" I asked. His jaw tightened. His eyes flickered, not to me but to my uncle. That was answer enough. "You let me grow up believing my voice caught, but I didn't stop. You let me call you Dad. Silence again. But not the same silence. This one was exposed. Raw. Say something, I said. He didn't. He just stood there, like always. And that's when I realized. The man I thought was my father hadn't just been silent my whole life. He had been hiding. No. There was nowhere left to hide. No one moved. Not my uncle. Not him. Not even me. It felt like the world had narrowed into something small and tight, like we were all standing inside a box no one could step out of. Then my grandmother spoke again. He wasn't supposed to stay, she said quietly. My eyes snapped to her. What does that mean? She hesitated. And that hesitation said more than everything else combined. The man on that paper, she continued slowly, he didn't leave you. My breath caught. He was pushed out. The words landed harder than anything before. I turned sharply toward my uncle. By who? No answer. But I didn't need one. I already knew. You, I said, my voice low, steady. You decided I didn't belong before I even knew who I was. My uncle scoffed, but it wasn't confident anymore. We did what was necessary. Your mother. Don't, I cut him off. As suddenly, pieces were connecting. Conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Photos that never included certain faces. Questions that were always redirected. You erased him, I said. And then you erased me. My father, no. The man who stood in his place finally stepped forward. It wasn't like that, he said quickly. You had a home. You had stability. I let out a small hollow laugh. Stability. I repeated. You mean silence. That word lingered. Because it was the one thing he had always given me. Silence when I cried. Silence when I asked questions. Silence when I needed truth. I folded the paper carefully, slower this time. Not shaking anymore. Not confused. Just clear. You told me I wasn't family, I said, looking between all of them. But the truth is. I paused. Let it settle. You built this whole family on a lie. Inside, the music swelled again. Cheers this time like someone had just made a toast. Perfect timing. As out here. Everything they had hidden was finally standing in the open. And I wasn't asking for answers anymore. Already had them. Well, I just needed them to understand something. They didn't control this story anymore. I did. I folded the paper once more, and slipped it back into the envelope. Carefully. Like it deserved more respect than the people standing in front of me. No speeches, I said quietly. No scene. My uncle frowned. Then what exactly are you planning to do? I looked past him. Through the glass doors. Inside I could see the long family table. Perfectly arranged, every seat assigned, every name placed with intention. That now. I noticed something new. At the far end of the table. One chair. No name card. Just empty. The chair looked like it was waiting for me. I almost smiled. I'm not here to ruin anything, I said calmly. You've already done that yourselves. My father, no. That man stepped closer, his voice softer now. Danielle, we can talk about this. Not here. I shook my head. You had years to talk, I said. You chose silence. That word again. It settled between us like something final. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. A single tap, and the message sent. Not to them. To someone else. Someone whose name had been buried on that paper. I spent years trying to belong to a family that erased me, I said, my voice steady, almost gentle now. I'm done asking for space where I was never meant to exist. My grandmother's eyes filled, but she didn't stop me. He knew. This wasn't anger. This was clarity. Behind the glass, the celebration continued. Laughter. Music. Toasts. But at that table, that empty seat remained untouched. Because some spaces don't stay empty forever. They wait. For the truth to arrive. I turned, taking my children's hands, feeling their warmth, real, certain mine. As we walked away, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because 68 hours from now, when the call came back, when the truth they buried started breathing again, they wouldn't be asking if I belonged. They'd be begging to know what I knew. And for the first time in my life, I wouldn't answer.